this is interesting. Then I went on Instagram, I checked your page. It was so interesting. Then I went on Spotify to check out your podcast, and I was wow, like this is amazing. And ever since, I've been listening to Everything Voiceovers, honestly, and it's really, really amazing. All the episodes that I've listened to has really changed my mentality. So was voiceovers, and there is more to voiceovers than what we are just saying.
Come on, see being proud of myself right now.
Hi, and welcome to the Everything Voiceovers Podcast. I'm Tcode, an African voiceover talent from Nigeria, and this is my podcast, where I take on voiceover topics from an African perspective. In this final episode of Season 2 of the podcast, I hosted a fun conversation with fans of the pod as we share some of our most beautiful moments on the podcast so far this season. Sit back and enjoy this episode.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Everything Voiceovers Podcast, the African perspective. It's Tcode here again, and I'm excited for this new episode. But now the big news about this episode, the thing is that we're having this episode, but then it's the last episode of this season of the podcast. So doesn't mean that we do the podcast no more. No, we'll be doing the podcast, but this particular episode is the final one for season 2 of the podcast. So in case you don't know, we had season 1, which ran last year, and this is season 2 of the podcast. And the first season had 20 episodes, and this is the 20th episode for the second season. I feel so proud of myself, really. I am also very much excited that you guys are listening. So because if there was nobody listening, why would I be doing this anyway? So we're in this together. And speaking about listening to the podcast, that is what makes this episode super unique. I've never done this before. Today, I'm bringing on board listeners of the podcast. Can you imagine? And I thought, how best to end the season than to bring in, people who enjoy the podcast, people who have testimonies, people who have been touched one way or the other, and who will support what I do as well. So I've got 3 personalities. Like I said, first thing about them is that they're listeners of the podcast and they're my guests today. Let me do the introductions. I've got with me 2 beautiful ladies and a very handsome gentleman. So I'm going to start with the ladies because they say ladies first. And the first person I'm going to introduce is a video creator, a voiceover artist, and of course, a fan of the podcast. She goes by the name Deborah Babalola. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Tcode. So glad to be here.
Glad to have you here as well. So I've got the other lady on the podcast today. Interestingly, she's a voiceover artist, but as well as a banker. And also she's a chef. 3 things in one. Creatives are just amazing, isn't it? She goes by the name Tunbosun Salau. Hi, Tunbosun. It's a pleasure having you.
Same here.
And finally, let's get to the handsome gentleman that we've got in the podcast today. He's a civil engineer, is a football commentator, is also a voiceover artist. I'm talking about the other person, Dan, the ever articulates. That's just for the glam. Oh, Corey, Guygreta.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted. I mean, I'm a fan of the podcast, so it's something of joy to be here. Yeah.
So I'm going to be starting. Who do I start from? Let's get back to Deborah now. For you, Deborah, what do you do aside from voiceovers?
Okay. I'm a graduate of medical physiology. I recently signed out a few months back. Aside from that, I'm a video creator and a voiceover artist. That's basically what I do. And also a podcaster in the making.
You're a podcast in the making. You have a podcast?
Yes, I do.
Okay, what's the name of your podcast?
The Meet You podcast with DOB. It's just a fresh one. So
it's a fresh one, no problem. You already have fans already. Don't worry. As you're starting, people are going to start listening to your podcast. So it's a pleasure having you here, Deborah. So Tunbosun, can you tell us, give us an insight to how you manage being a banker and a voiceover artist?
Okay. So though it's not really been easy like that, but then I try as much as I can to manage my time. So one to Fridays are for work. Weekends, I dedicate my time for voiceovers when it comes, and I dedicate my time for my catering business when it comes. So weekends are for my other businesses, and Monday to Fridays are for work. I try as much as I can to balance the whole situation.
Okay, that sounds cool. How about you, Guygreta?
If you look at it well, you see that the singing, football commentary stuff, and voiceover, they are all connected to me using my voice. So the civil engineering part is, like I told you earlier, I work for a company. So it takes my week, maybe Monday to Saturday sometimes, but usually it's Monday to Friday. But weekends are for my passions. My passions is being a voiceover artist and just basically using my voice to any way possible, whether it's singing, whether it's a live game at Stevie Keshi Stadium in Asaba, and then they want some commentary, or it's some group inviting me to come sing alongside them and stuff like that. And then maybe it's a voiceover gig available. Yes, I'll just do that during the weekend.
That's nice. Very similar. So, Deborah, give us a short story about how you discovered the podcast.
Okay, so until 2022, when I was just going through Instagram and I stumbled on Voice of Steph page. So Voice of Steph actually brought me into the voiceover industry officially. Then I stumbled onto your podcast last year when you interviewed Voice of Steph on our award. Yes, that I got to know about Everything Voiceovers. So I was very happy when I found out that so there's a podcast that is all about voiceover. So that's got me glued to your podcast ever since then.
That's beautiful to know. Thank you for being a part of the podcast, I should say, and for listening. Now, over to Tunbosun. I'm curious to know how you discovered the podcast.
Wow. Thank you, Tcode, for that question. So, because I wanted to know more about the voiceover, I reached out to a friend. I asked her that, okay, this voiceover of the thing, there should be a community. There should be something more about this thing, not me just doing my own thing in the corner of my room, and it shouldn't end here. So she told me to join to check out voiceover workshop, which I did, and I went for a training there. So through voiceover workshop training, the voiceover alumni, I was able to get in contact with. I stumbled upon your podcast, which you posted. I think it was The Pressure is Real or something. So I played it and I was like, wow, this is interesting. Then I went on Instagram, I checked your page. It was so interesting. Then I went on Spotify to check out your podcast, and I was, wow, like, this is amazing. And ever since, I've been listening to Everything Voiceovers, honestly, and it's really, really amazing. All the episodes that I've listened to has really changed my mentality. So was voiceovers, honestly. It's really, really interesting. And there is more to voiceovers than what we are just saying.
Mm-hmm. Come on, it's really being proud of myself right now. All right, so thank you so much, Tunbosun. I mean, that's really it's humbling, and as well as I'm proud of myself to know that people can listen to the podcast and feel very happy and blessed and want to be associated with it. So I thank you for listening, and that brings me to my next question for the three of you, which is, having listened to different episodes of the podcast, can you tell me your biggest highlights? What is that unforgettable episode or conversation, that thing that caught your attention that you're not going to forget in a while? And it could be more than one episode, really, but just tell me that one or those episodes or those conversations or those guests that did it for you. Let's start with Tunbosun.
Okay. The first one that I find so interesting was the session you had with Femi Bakes. I so much find that episode interesting, and I really learned a lot. Like, it was interesting. And I also find the one you did with Remy, where he made mention of because initially what I do is I write scripts for my clients. Wherever I listen, like, okay, this thing is a day. If I have that talent of writing my scripts, of a script writer, that should be paid for differently. So I let them know, okay, if you you want me to write this script for you, you are paying for this particular thing. So voicing is different, and this script I'm writing for you is a different thing entirely. So I actually learned that from that particular episode. And there was another one you talked on, consistency. Consistency, like I just say to myself, when I started voicing, that was in 2019 also. The energy I am putting into what talks now, I say to myself, if I had put this energy back then in 2019, I believe I would have gone far beyond where I am. But then it's not bad because I'm still learning. But then, like you said, consistency is very, very important. It's very, very charming, which I have held on to that. And I'm working towards that to actually improve my voiceover business. And yeah, it was what you did with Kufre, if I'm not mistaken, the indigenous voiceover. Yes, indigenous voiceover. So that one, Blessing Kure, yes, about indigenous language like that. I find that so interesting as well because I do Yoruba voiceovers as well. I do Pidgin, I do Yorubas. I learned a lot from that. Your goals and duties, I actually found that so interesting as well. So all of it are actually interesting. The pressure is real, how to get voiceover jobs, and all interesting things I wish I knew before. Oh, more.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, and I want us to have something for Deborah and Guygreta to talk about. Yeah, let's hear from Deborah now. Deborah, tell us about the same question I asked Tunbosun about what episodes made it for you, or what lessons stood out. What did you learn? Which guests? Give us a rundown.
Well, for me, I found all the episodes relatable. Like listening to other people speak, hearing them discuss things that that okay, you are not the only one. That feeling of you are not the only one feeling this. You are not the only one going through this. Especially the pressure is real. Like I had to listen to it over and over again because I'm like, no, I'm not the only one feeling burnt out. I know that it's not going to be a smooth ride. So it's okay to feel down. It's okay to feel burnt out. And the most important thing is just to get back up. You said in this journey, we should be ready to face rejections. Like that word in that episode, try new things. And you also recommended a movie that I'm going to watch in a word. Yes, I think that's the movie. Yes. Then the accent conundrum episode, you really spoke a lot in that episode. And what I gained is that if once we're given a script, it's not every accent that fits into a particular character. Like we're given a Nigerian character, we shouldn't bring in an American accent for a Nigerian character. Like could it work? It's not like could make sense. Yes.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah.
So the old studio equipment with Uche, the Adaka episode with the character and all, everything is awesome, I must say. And I say you are doing a very good job.
Thank you, Deborah. That's beautiful to hear, and I am proud of us. Not me, and myself, right? Yeah, I'm proud of us. Now let's get to Guygreta. The same question that I asked also and Deborah. I want to hear the response to that question from you. What stood out for you in terms of the episodes, the conversations, the guests, or the lessons that you learned?
Thanks for that. I was hoping maybe later on you might allow me to talk about how I got into voiceover, but about
ask you that question.
Yeah, you didn't. But then, yeah. So, but about the episodes, I don't think there's any episode that is not valuable. All of them are of great, superb value. I mean, like outstanding, exclusive. Of course, that's why the voiceover is where it is on the listening chart. So, but sometimes it's basically about the one that answers the question that has been begging inside you, maybe for a long time or based on your research at the moment. And there are episodes like maybe you and your goals that it serves as a a boost, a re-energizing, a motivational something to help you understand that, okay, this journey that you are on, it's not a journey that you just enter into it and boom, you blow up. So, but I enjoyed the season 2, episode 8, that talks about home studio setup with Danley Uche. It was so funny. I had to laugh a lot, and there was a lot of information to pick out there. The real life experiences of being inside a box of, depending the kind of studio you have, maybe it's a booth, the sweat and all of that comes with it, the reality in performance as a voiceover artist. So that's more of the episode I would say was like a highlight for me. Other ones were cool, things to know, but of course, you and I didn't start, we met January. There's been classes as well. So every episode made sense. But I just had that episode laugh. I had to listen to it. I think a second time. It was just so funny about the flow between you and Danny Uche. Very, very.
Right. I mean, it's beautiful. By the way, I should give credit to Remy Mine because he has a platform on Telegram. I've mentioned it before, and I'm going to mention it again. It's called Voice Acting Africa.
Yeah.
So that's the name of the community on Telegram. I'm going to put that in the show notes as well, so you can join. So while you're joining the Voice Acting Africa community, you should also join the Everything Voiceovers Podcast community on Telegram. Now, it's on that Telegram platform that I met. I think that was where I met Danley Uche, and meeting other people across the continent, thanks to that platform. But then I really like the fact that you listened and you enjoyed, because I'm the type of person that I like to make things as enjoyable as possible, because I don't like it to be rigidly straight and strong corporate formal. So
if I may mention,
yeah.
Sorry, I just want to mention, like you mentioned something about making something fun and not just all strong and rigid. Look, for me, your podcast is, I know there are other podcasts probably out there, but there's none to yours because yours is more relatable to us Nigerians. It's more relatable. So for me, someone who has opened the door of voiceover career a little bit of a crack, listening to your voiceovers makes me open the door more wide. And anytime I want to listen to your voiceovers, I add it to my to-do list. Like I treat it like it's a job. It's a time I have to bring out and listen to Tcode's podcast on this, because either there is a reflection at the end of listening, or there are things you just have to jot down in your journal or your book regarding voiceovers.
I don't even know what to say right now, because I feel a bit emotional. I feel emotional, like, really, guys.
You deserve it. Take your award.
It's great.
Thank you, guys.
For clapping.
Thank you, guys. I am happy that I actually did it, because there was a lot of imposter syndrome before I started. And the truth is, another thing I've learned about this is you don't have to have the knowledge entirely. Trust your creativity. I had been podcasting before, but not in the consistency that I've given to this podcast, and not with the level of seriousness that I've given to it, because I'm really actually passionate about voiceovers. But I had to trust my creativity, and I had to work. So, not like I necessarily had a template I was following, but I borrowed ideas from different places. I did a bit of research, and I just trusted that this thing I'm doing is going to make sense. And with each episode, if you listen to the season 1, I was more uptight, trying to get it accurately and stuff, follow the questions that I'd written down and all of that. For each episode, then I used to come up with at least 20 questions, no cap. At least I do thorough research on my guests. I have a document, I send it to them. But as I grew in this, like I literally grew in it, I was getting more free, understanding the entire thing. Like I began to grow into this, and like I owned it, sort of, right? So now that also brings me to how I have found it very useful in my coaching sessions. So I run one-on-one coaching classes with people who want to learn voiceover. So I have a couple of students. And one of the things I do, apart from teaching them, I leave them with assignments, which includes listen to so episode of the podcast, listen to this episode, and the next class, you're going to tell me what you learned. And it's just so interesting that it makes my work easier because when they listen, they have a lot of context and background to what we're going to be discussing in the next episode. So I'm saying this again because I find just not even to every other person, but even to myself, I find the podcast very resourceful. It's not just Tcode talking. I have guests who are, some have at least a decade experience, some have maybe 5 years. Regardless, they are experts and professionals in what they do. So it's a blessing to me myself. And at this point, okay, just before I get into the next part of this episode where I'm going to let you guys ask me questions, I want to track back to Guygreta. The question I want you to answer is how you came across voiceovers and also how you came across the podcast.
About voiceovers for me, I saw myself while serving, working part-time in the radio. The radio I went to, a friend of mine got me there, and they kind of loved me being around. So I started working part-time with the radio for just doing the NYC time. I was doing football analysis. A friend of mine, same friend that got me to the radio, said that she auditioned for that project, and that she would love me to audition for it, to send my own voice note or voice recording, that she showed that as a role that would fit me. And when I opened it, I saw that as a commentary role there, and I was like, okay. And so, I got into the project, and, the whole of the story about the whole project was for me to confirm that voiceover was actually for me. I should do this more often. So that's basically how I got into the voiceover, and then, met you, Voice of Steph, and, all of that. Fast forward, I can't stop listening to your podcast and stuff relating to you, So thanks, Tcode. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you too, man. This sounds very good. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. And now for the part where you guys get to ask me questions. Let's start with Deborah, and then we go to Tunbosun, and then we go to Guygreta. So Deborah, the mic is yours. What is the question you'd like to ask me? I'm here to answer.
Okay. Okay, first off, are there any voiceover agencies in Nigeria?
Okay. So as far as I know, we don't have, should I use the word standard voiceover agencies in Nigeria? But I know that some organizations have been springing up in recent times to sort of meet the needs in this space. One that my mind or my brain can think of right now is iVoice Media, or iVoice Africa. Yes, iVoice Africa. Then I also know that the Voiceover Academy, they have a platform for the alumni of the institution. So they have a dedicated website for the alumni members, which is for voice talent. And it's more like the workings of how an agency operates, that they have talent under them. When there are gigs, clients can select which voices they'll prefer. And, the organization manages the interaction between the talent and the client, the payments, the production, and all of that. So I have to give it up for the Voiceover Academy for doing that. I also know that the voiceover workshop has something similar. So that's how best I can answer this question. But then apart from these ones that I have mentioned, I don't know of any other. So like I said, to call them standard voiceover agencies would mean that that is what they call themselves in the first place. And, they do other things apart from helping clients find talents and helping talents find clients. So we have voiceover casting sites like the Nigerian Voiceover Bank. We also have Hyper Voices, which I talked about in the last episode with Emeka Ononkwo, which is also still in the works. So yeah, then voiceover academies and institutions that have something similar for alumni of their institution. I hope that answers the question.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm here.
So Tunbosun, you have any question you want to ask me? It could be, directed to me personally or the industry. Fine.
If it's not voiceover, what else would you have actually opted in for? Like, what would you have done aside voiceover?
That's an interesting one. If it wasn't voiceovers, but there are a lot of things I could have done, though. Starting with radio, which I actually did. Starting with radio, which I actually did. I could have just, continued doing radio. I love radio. I could have done TV as well because I had a short stint on TV. That was in 2017. I can draw and paint. So I would have probably been an artist, drawing and painting. I love that. I sing as well, but I don't take it as serious. But you never can tell. I could have done that as well. Yeah. What else? I'm curious about tech. So probably I'll be the coding guy. When you say Tcode, I just say yeah, for that. I like codes.
Coded boy, coded guy.
Yeah. And I'll do podcasts. Certainly, I'll do podcasts. That one is normal. Yeah. Okay, so that's it from you, right? Okay.
Yeah, I want to ask another question.
Okay.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. So I want to ask, have you ever thought of Everything Voiceover Conference? Have you thought of something like that?
Oh my God.
I was about to ask that. Should we look forward to having a physical video?
Oh my God, that's an interesting question. I never saw this coming.
Yeah.
Have I ever thought about having Everything Voiceover Conference? Huh. Yeah, I see. The thing is, I'm a fan of growth. That's the truth. And Everything Voiceovers Conference in the future, maybe, right? But what I've realized, in all honesty, is that in the industry as it is today, there is a lot of work that needs to be done. And one of the ways I am contributing to the industry is to populate the industry with as much knowledge and information as possible, right? And I also work with the different associations in Nigeria and in Africa. The intent is to contribute my quota. But having said all of that, there are people who have dedicated themselves to organizing voiceover conferences. I just think it is smart to support what they're doing, right? So we've got the voiceover conference organized by the Voiceover Workshop and Media, which is led by Emmanuel Afemike King E. And I support the voiceover conference wholeheartedly. I am a part of the organizing process, so I support the voiceover conference. There's also the VO Africa conference. If you listen to last week's episode, or the last episode of the podcast, It was all about the VO Africa. So I support. When I get to that level where I have the capacity to pull all of this together, if there is a need for it, we're going to evolve to having a conference. So I can't categorically answer if it's a yes or no, but like the word growth, sounds, we will go into it. and we'll know what to do when we get to that point. But it's pretty exciting, really, to have a voiceover conference.
Yeah.
Or just an outgown.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So now that leaves us with Guygreta.
Okay, so my question would be about animation voiceovers, because I think that's a part of voiceovers in Nigeria that has started growing up, picking up the pace. So, of course, we didn't grow up watching animation or cartoons of Nigerians. Like, we watched those of the past, Mulan, Teletubbies or whatever. So, but, you know, in that animation, the few that I've seen now, like maybe, do you think something like the superhero kind of animation would fit, you know, the Nigerian, setting based on how our culture and stuff is? And if it's going to fit, do you think it's a must that it shouldn't have to be like the, how will I put it, the Europeans own, you know, like they have Superman. We don't have to wear those kind of costumes, right? Because I've seen some new animation of Nigeria, whether 2D or 3D, and you know, it didn't work. Couldn't comprehend it. Like, they were fighting like a superhero, and then they were speaking even pidgin, but they were dressed in those kind of European way, and it just seemed so odd to me. So I don't know what's your take on, you know, animation voiceovers in Nigeria. Are we going to ever get to that point where children of the next 10, 20 years would say they grew up watching our own Nigerian kind of Teletubbies and stuff?
Okay. Now that's an interesting question, because I'm also equally concerned and interested in the animation industry in Nigeria, especially when it comes to the voiceover side of it. And if you've listened to the podcast, especially an episode like the Accent Conundrum, I tried to explain what I think the problem might be and what I think should be how animation voiceovers should be done. So the truth is that animation is, first of all, a foreign concept. For us, it's a foreign concept in the terms of technicality, like how it is being expressed. It doesn't mean that we don't have the originality of being artistic, but the concept of putting art and motion into a screen is a foreign concept, if you agree with me. So what I have originally is storytelling. But when the problem comes is that we took our storytelling and we tried to blend it in with the Western influence that came via animation, because of course it's their thing. So we watched a lot of that, and in a way we wanted to blend with that. And you know, like you have just said, it is obvious that it doesn't entirely exhibit the original African culture and tapestry. So we are left with, and what I believe that we ought to do now, which I see that is being done gradually, is tell our stories. We have abundant stories in Africa that we can tell. And for instance, a few weeks back, we saw this movie, the animation short film, Ajaka, Lost in Rome. Yeah. That was original. That was very African. Yes. And the fact that the voice actors spoke the Nigerian accent, I felt satisfied. We need to learn to embrace our own and express ourselves in the accent that is most natural to us. So I think these are like ways that we can grow and embrace the animation industry and build a huge culture around it. Because if we continue mimicking the West in terms of our storytelling style, we're doing ourselves a disservice, because we're just doing a copy of what they have. And it's just going to remain a copy. until we sit down and we embrace what we have. There's no harm in modernizing it, really, right? There's no harm in giving it a bit of fusion, especially looking at the current day scenery in Africa. How, of course, you can almost not detach the current Africa from Western civilization and influence. However, we have our own customized version of that Western influence. For instance, we have Pidgin English. The white man cannot, they're trying now, they're catching up, but they cannot understand the kind of Pidgin English that is being spoken in Wales. But the English part of it is not ours. It came from England. It came from the UK. Nonetheless, we have what's the word now? We're not
made it our own. Yeah, made it our own.
Made it our own. So it's unique to us. So, like I said, it's not bad to have a fusion, but it should still be in the context of what the day-to-day Nigerian and African can relate to, and not a guy putting on a cape and pants that we don't dress like on a normal day.
Right, exactly.
So I'm gonna end on this note to say, for instance, so there's this, I call it a blockbuster movie, huge movie on Netflix right now. That's Jagun Jagun. It's a Yoruba movie, and yesterday I saw people talking about how a particular character in that movie is worth developing to become a Nigerian superhero, or you can even make him a villain. That is Agemo. So people need to watch the movie to understand. But the Agemo character is a very spiritual character, and he's a warrior. Involves strength, speed. I believe Agemo can teleport. But all of this, they're enshrined in the spirituality of the African tradition and culture. So it's just so natural and believable and interesting when you have a superhero in that character, and not trying to have another Nigerian Superman that doesn't have a roots in the African culture. So these are my thoughts really about the animation industry.
I just want to say, I think by the time these things you said, starts happening fully in Nigeria, and probably when animation voiceovers become a strong point, strong something in Nigeria, I believe that in Nigeria we have more stories. I think we have 1,000 and more stories that can be in form of animations to tell out there to the world. It's just that we haven't been able to put it out there. Well, I just want to ask you one quick question, Tcode. What voiceover job have you done so far that you are most proud of?
Yeah. Oh man, that's gonna get me thinking. Hey, that was gonna get me thinking. I'm most proud of. If I say commercials, there are a couple of commercials that I've done that I can boldly say I'm proud of, but it's not forever enduring. But when I look at it from animation, I've been in a couple of animations. Interestingly, they are not out yet, but I am most certain these projects will be out this year. So there is one of them that I can't talk about now, but I am proud of the fact that amongst the thousands of voice actors in this country, I was selected to be one of the characters, or to play one of the characters in that project. So I am happy to be a part of it. Let's put it in the animations, because I could go to commercials or narrations, but yeah, in animation wise, yes. I can't mention the name of the project, so we'll wait until it's out. Yeah. I think I'm done, right? You guys are done asking me questions.
I have just one question, just one.
Oh my God. Okay, let's share it.
Okay, so have you ever rejected any voiceover gig?
Have I ever
Rejected a voiceover gig?
Yeah, I have rejected a lot. Let me not put it that way. I would say I have looked away from a lot of voiceover gigs because they don't fit into maybe my scope or my values or my terms and condition or my terms of work, right? Because you get to a point, and it's not even about just getting to a point. I think it's just ethical for you to have standards for your business. It's not everything that you will take and do. It's like somebody comes to meet me to say, oh, I want to give you a voiceover job in Yoruba to do. I'm a Yoruba person, but I know my Yoruba is not as, grounded as some others. So I do them and myself a favor. I refer them to other Yoruba voiceover artists. It's not like I cannot try to do it, but to do justice to what the person is paying, I want you to have quality service. Now, tomorrow I can decide that I want to, make Yoruba voiceover my thing. And the responsibility lies on me to do my gear training diligently, to fine-tune my speech pattern to be able to express Yoruba perfectly or very well. So I have standards, right? Sometimes it's the price. It's not, it's not what I would accept, and I let it go. Factors like that. Sometimes it's the contract. Whether it's a local gig, whether it's an international gig, I have looked away from a couple of international gigs this year because maybe the price is not worth it. Because I know the value, I know the worth of this thing, right? Because you want to pay me some dollars doesn't mean I will jump at it. Let's be fair. Because I'm African, you think you could give me anything? No. So I am just saying this to try to explain why I can work for certain jobs and turn down those offers. It's either I feel like I am not the best voice for that project, and I will refer somebody that is better, or rather somebody whose voice is better on that project, for that project, or meant for that project, or it doesn't fit to my terms of work, or I don't feel satisfied with the terms that they're bringing to me on the negotiation table. Yeah, so I've rejected and looked away from certain jobs. I think I answered the question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I think we've had a good time today on the podcast. I really enjoyed talking to you guys. I really enjoyed having you guys ask me questions as well and tell me the things that you loved and enjoyed about the podcast, the guests, the episodes, and all of that. I feel like there's no better way to end the podcast or the season of the podcast than, having this conversation with listeners. And I am happy that I did that. I feel very motivated to do more. I kind of found another inspiration, energy, to keep doing. And I promise you that, yeah, we're going to keep it up. So, normally I end the podcast by saying stuff like giving an advice, right? Keep listening, keep learning, keep enjoying. Yeah. So this time around, I'll leave you guys to do that part. You can say to me whatever advice you want to give me, or you can talk to the listeners as well, whatever advice you want to give them. And then we close the episode. We end the episode. Let's start with Tunbosun. What is your last advice for all of us?
Whatever is worth doing well. Believe in yourself, pushing, take a deep breath in and out, and just be in charge of the mic.
Yeah. Okay, Deborah, what's your advice for all of us, including me?
All right. It's been wonderful, I must say. I really enjoyed myself on this episode. My advice is whatever you have in mind to do, just start doing it. Just start. I know taking that very first step is going to be difficult, but it's going to get better. Just start. And keep living, keep learning, keep loving, and keep smiling. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Deborah. Guygreta, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tcode, for having me on your podcast. It's an honor. I'm delighted. And to everyone out there, if you are a fan of voiceover, certainly if you're in Nigeria, in fact, whether you're in Nigeria or not, you need to keep listening to Everything Voiceovers Podcast by Tcode. Of course, whatever you want to do, just keep doing it. Consistency is key. Look, if it sucks the first time, it's just an info to tell you that the next few times that you try it, it's going to be much more amazing. So, Tcode, we love you and support you. Keep doing this because you are helping us a lot in the voiceover industry.
Thanks so much, Guygreta. I appreciate that. And this is what we call it a wrap on the podcast for this season 2. I would say for my final words, first of all, if you're not a member of the Everything Voiceovers Podcast community on Telegram, I would implore you to be a member. You can do that by clicking on the link on the show notes. It will take you straight. If you're on Telegram, if you have a Telegram account, it will take you straight to Telegram and then you can be a part of it because we have a lot in store for you. Finally, I want to say a very big thank you to all of you for being a part of this season of the podcast. It's been a pleasure serving you weekly, even though there were some weeks that I had to take a break, about 2 weeks, I guess. But it's been a pleasure, and thank you for also extending the love. Some of you go as far as sending emails to just tell me how you felt, how it helped you. I really appreciate. For those of you that comment on Spotify or on Apple Podcast, I see those comments, and they're very much appreciated. And there's something I want all of you all to do right now. Give the podcast a rating. Either you're listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcast, give it a 5-star rating because, of course, it's worth it, I think. So, yeah, that's it for this season of the podcast. Every other information will be given on the podcast community on Telegram. Till next season of the podcast, you know what? Go listen to all of the episodes of the podcast so far and keep learning, keep growing. Don't stop voiceovers. Don't stop voicing. Don't give up. And whatever you're doing, even if it's not voiceovers, just try to be better. And I see you at the top. I think that's it for now. So bye, guys. Bye, everyone. Bye, Guygreta.
Bye.
Deborah. Yeah.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell someone about it. Follow the podcast on Everything VOs on all social media platforms. Thanks for listening and see you on the next episode. This podcast is a Coded Voiceovers production.